What you need to know about the Monaco Grand Prix is that Ferrari have finished Thursday practice 1-2. They're right back in it in Formula One. Charles Leclerc brilliantly quick in the afternoon. Carlos Sainz backing him up just a few tenths slower. And in the morning, when Charles had a problem with his gearbox, broke fourth gear, it was Carlos Sainz who carried the Maranello flag. Looked really, really good. He ended that morning session second quickest. He was, however, on the medium tyre, a tyre he'd run from the start of FP1 when most other runners were on the hard tyre. And right at the end, Sergio Perez out on the soft tyre in the Red Bull quickest. So Red Bull going into FP2 feeling pretty good. Sergio Perez quick on the soft tyre. Max Verstappen also very quick on the medium tyre, but starting to complain about the front going away. Mercedes too, right up there. Whenever they were running, they're always top three as well. But for Ferrari, it was, well, Carlos Sainz has done that time. Charles Leclerc, nowhere at the moment. We've got to give him a good run at the beginning of FP2. And that's what they did. They sent him out on the medium tyre, like most other runners. And for Charles, it was a question of getting into the groove, getting some sort of balance in the car, while everybody else was starting to focus on doing some decent long runs on that medium tyre. So Charles' initial runs didn't get too many headlines. And this was indeed the build-up to an amazing FP2, one of the best I've seen around Monaco for a long, long time. So let's just have a look at the chronology as it went along. I'm just looking at the laptop as we go here. Carlos Sainz on the hard tyre, everybody else is on the medium, but he was kind of out of sync, but looking good on the hard tyre as well. Did a 14.9 early in FP2. Lando Norris quick, he's been quick all day in the McLaren in its Gulf colours, that one-off livery. I've got to say, when you see the cars out on the track in the sunshine, going through the shadow and then into the sunshine, you kind of think, it'd be nice if that light blue was maybe a shade stronger, a shade darker, but it does look good. With the black pinstriping, it looks a little bit, dare I say it, Minardi-ish in livery. I better not say that, Zach Brown wouldn't like it, but they did have that pinstriping on the Gulf Porsches back in 1970, so they're totally correct in doing that. Anyway, in the Gulf McLarens, sounds good to say that, doesn't it? Lando Norris always quicker all day than Daniel Ricciardo, again, but both of them looking pretty good, and Lando putting in some very good laps as well. So Valtteri Bottas did a 15.4 on the medium tyre, and Lewis Hamilton looking really good as well. Did a 12.5 quite early on in that session. So the Mercedes really quick too. And you thought, wow, this is going to be really good. Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, how's it going to end? So Lewis did a 12.7, and then Carlos Sainz responded to that 12.7 with a 12.7 of his own on the hard Pirelli. So that looked really good for Ferrari. While all this was going on, Charles Leclerc was starting to really get into the groove on the medium tyre, but traffic today was just horrendous. I mean, talk about Piccadilly Circus. It was, these cars are so big and the circuit is so tight that it's almost impossible for any driver to do any lap without seeing a car in front of him. Whether he's going to be held up, of course, depends very much on what's happening to the car in front of that one. And so it's a concertina effect right around the lap. Very, very difficult to find a free lap. And there's a bit of a story in that as we get into it in this video. It won't be a long one, I got to say, but you'll see the point I'm going to make. So Carlos Sainz does that 12.7 on the hard tyre. Everybody then puts soft tyres on to see what it's going to be like when they get out of the track on Saturday to really put a quick lap together. Bearing in mind, of course, that the Monaco circuit evolves faster than probably any other on the Formula One calendar. So the track we saw today will bear very little relationship, unless there's rain, to what we're going to see on Saturday in terms of grip level. Nonetheless, the indications are there. Max Verstappen did a 12.0. Lewis Hamilton responded with a 12.0 of his own. Carlos Sainz, though, then did an 11.7 on his real first run on the soft tyre and went to the top of the time. So here was Carlos Sainz, great run in the morning on top of FP2 with about 20 minutes to run now, all on soft tyres. Let's go through the list of what they were all doing at that point. Max Verstappen, say 12.0, Lewis 12.0. Charles Leclerc had done a 12.0 as well, so he was really getting in the groove. So they all came into the pits then, but Charles, of course, was running slightly out of sync because he'd had a longer run at the beginning of FP2 just to give him that mileage and that feel for the car. But he stayed out on the softs, and the soft, as I say, a very, very good tyre in terms of its longevity. And while everybody else was back in the pits and it was pretty quiet, there's Charles Leclerc out on what is basically an empty track. And he did an 11.6, absolutely superb lap. We saw him into Casino, where he was doing exactly what Lewis does. I think he and Lewis are centre left as they get to the top of the hill, going into Casino. Incredible commitment to be able to do that. Max slightly to the right of them, as we saw around Barcelona, but not much to say. So Charles, absolutely fabulous into Casino Square and then also into the swimming pool. I mean, it's just amazing. They're all brilliant through the swimming pool. It just seems like they select a gear as they go into the very quick left, and they're just flat on it through the left and the right. Oh, just brilliant to watch. It's, of course, that trap at the swimming pool section is still there, which is a very, very slow right-left. The famous Jean Ragnotti corner where he went off when he was driving the course car years ago. I always remember it for that anyway. But big curbs there. Lando Norris had a slight moment there, and Yuki Tsunoda had a moment too, hitting the curbs and then bouncing into the guardrail on the right. But overall, most of the Formula One drivers very well behaved today. Fernando Alonso hit the guardrail coming out of Rascasse quite early in the session. Kimi had a bit of a lock-up going into Sainte Devote. And that was about it. All pretty clean. But let me read it through because it is great reading to be able to say this. Charles Leclerc, 11.6, P1, FP2, Monte Carlo. Second, Carlos Sainz, 11.7. A tenth of a second between them. Carlos definitely taking slightly wider entries, slightly longer corners than Charles, but he's looking so composed at the moment. And you've got to say around Monaco, which is, of course, a race with so many variables, having that slightly wider entry does give you a little bit more margin for error if there's something going on in the middle of the corner or something that you need to avoid, something you need to react to. Carlos is going to be in a slightly better shape. Charles has got this incredible early commitment to all the quick corners and most of the slow ones as well. You saw it into the entry into Rascasse, lovely overhead view. You can see how short he's making the corner into Rascasse, probably half a metre shorter than Carlos Sainz just on entry there, a little bit like Kimi Räikkönen in his golden McLaren days. So Charles looking fabulous, Lewis looking fabulous as well in the Mercedes. I thought, you know, why wouldn't he? But he just looked great. He didn't make the car look big. The car in the hands of Lewis Hamilton around Monte Carlo looks like a very agile, good racing car. Doesn't look quite the same in the hands of Valtteri Bottas. Maybe it's a psychological thing. We're thinking, oh, that's Valtteri. I don't know. But just Lewis looks all at one with the car around Monaco. Then everybody put fuel in the car. And that session, that wasn't only about 20 minutes to go, and it wasn't a great fuel run period. And I guess it's because most of the teams are thinking Saturday morning is going to be more representative because the track will be very different then anyway. That's why they spent so much time, I guess, on the lighter fuel. But just for the record, on those fuel runs, bear in mind there was a massive amount of traffic, and everything came to a halt 4 minutes to go. Valtteri did a 15.3. He did the most laps, I think, with fuel on board, so that was a pretty good representative time, I think. Carlos Sainz, though, 14.7, 14.8. Very, very quick. I don't know how much fuel he had in the car, of course. We can't say. We didn't see what Charles was going to do with fuel on board, but we know what he can do anyway, speed-wise. So looking incredibly good for Ferrari right now, providing, of course, they can keep this up. Remember what happened. I should mention it. Remember what happened last time they ran at Monaco and they didn't get Charles out of Q1 because they didn't think the track was going to get any quicker. I'm pretty sure you're going to see Charles running the entire filler up Q1, do every lap, every millisecond of Q1 he's probably going to run. It was brought to an end by Mick Schumacher hitting the guardrail at the top of the hill at Casino Square. Got away with it, hit the guardrail on the outside, banged the right rear suspension. But the interesting thing there, I thought, was when they cut back to the earliest point at which they could catch the car before he lost it, film-wise. And you can see his entry into Casino is like a car's width wider than Lewis or Charles going at the top of the hill there. Mick's over here, about there. And left of centre, you've got Charles and Lewis, and you've got Max about centre, and Sergio's slightly right of Max. And I go on about that because that, to me, is one of the great bits of road in Formula One. Top of the hill at Monte Carlo, where do you place the car on the entry into Massenet, the left-hander? Of course, you want to be on the groove. You want to be as tight as you can get away with, make the corner as short as possible, bearing in mind the marbles and everything else. But equally, bearing in mind how quick it is, and it's also blind. So, yeah, I wonder whether Mick had, I don't know. I mean, I never saw his dad anywhere on that part of the road where he was today. In fairness to Mick, maybe they just showed he'd already kind of lost it by then and maybe he was wider than he normally would. But if that is his normal positioning of the car, then it was a bit strange, I thought. So speaking as a Mick fan, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just ecstatic to see Ferrari 1-2 at the end of Thursday at Monte Carlo, and I just can't wait for the weekend. And great graphics on Leclerc's helmet, I thought, celebrating the 1931 Monaco Grand Prix, a race, of course, won by Louis Chiron, a monegasque like Charles. An epic win for him too, driving for Bugatti, beat Luigi Fagioli in the Maserati, two big marks at the time, two mega drivers. So amazing to see a driver just picking a race like that and putting it on the graphic on his helmet, and full marks for that. Charles, your feel for the history of the sport is not going unnoticed. Anyway, looking forward to seeing you. I'll be on the harbour, in theory, Saturday, Sunday. Looking forward to seeing you then, because this is going to be a Grand Prix that could be very different from anything we've seen for a long time. Fingers crossed. See you then.